All right, my friends, welcome back to All Cars. I am John. It is time for another Motor Week reaction video, and you will notice right there a couple of things. First off, haircut cut low and built for speed today, and number two, this is not a retro review reaction. In fact, this car, the 2013 Lincoln MKZ, is too new to be a retro review. But this is not the car I was going to do today, but I sat down, I saw this, I like this car a lot. And I thought I wanted to do this, so I'm breaking with tradition. Not a retro review, it's much more modern, but I really like this car and I want to talk about it. So please grab your favorite beverage of choice, sit back in your comfy chair, and let's you and I just have a little conversation and reminisce a little bit about 9 years ago in the MKZ.
Motorweek is made possible by Rock Auto, Tire Rack, and 3M.
Ford's luxury brand Lincoln has been in a sad place for some time now. Sales sagged badly and its image was not what it once was. But there's hope. This Lincoln MKZ is the first vehicle in a total revamping of the Lincoln lineup due over the next couple of years. And so far, it's been moving out of dealers at a good pace. So let's see if the MKZ is a true sign of great things to come for Lincoln.
So that's a little bit of an understatement. Ford absolutely starved Lincoln for a long time. Not good styling, not good product, just, you know, gussied up Fords is what they were. But I would like to say, since this, Lincoln has really turned a corner, in my opinion. I wish they had more cars, but, you know, they go where the market is and they have SUVs. But I like almost every single one of their SUVs. I think they are top of the class in a lot of ways. I mean, if you want a BMW, you're going to get a BMW. You're not going to get a Lincoln. But if it came down to spending my money between a Lincoln and a Cadillac, ooh, as much as I like Cadillac, I'm not sure I wouldn't go for the Lincoln. Well, let's talk about the styling here for a minute. A lot to like here. A few things I absolutely hate. What I love, I like the overall look of the car. I like that strong character line that runs through the door handles right there. We'll talk about the rear end in a minute, I bet. I like the look of this car. In fact, I think this car was about 9/10 of the way to being a really standout, premium, near luxury car to compete with, well, in a lot of ways, what BMW or Acura or Lexus were offering. But they just missed it. And part of this is from the styling. First off, I don't like the grille. I hated, they were trying to do this wing thing on their grills, and it always looked awkward. It always looked hideous. I absolutely hate it. Now, the redesign after this, where they went with a more traditional grille, loved it. I think it improved the car dramatically. But this, I just don't like it. In the lighter colors, it looks better. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. The second thing is the visual heft of the car. The car looks fat. It looks thick, right? And specifically when you look at the doors, those doors look so tall, and then the windows correspondingly look small. And there's just a lot of visual heft to this car. I complain about Acura's being too thin. So there's a line between being too thin and being fat. You want to have a car that has some presence. And I think this car just misses it, honestly. Whether it's the headlights are a little too small, or whether it's that windowsill is too high, the roof is a little too low, and the car this is based on, honestly, you have to be careful not to hit your head when you're getting in. So this car could have been just a little bit taller on the roof, and I think it could have, with just a few styling tweaks, had a little bit more presence. Let's keep going.
It took Lincoln quite a while to deliver a 2013 MKZ to us for a complete road test, so we had plenty of time to remember all of the gussied-up Fords that Lincoln has tried to pass on as luxury cars in recent years, and we were quite prepared for more of the same with the all-new Lincoln MKZ. But not so fast. This MKZ is quite different from the Ford Fusion that it's based on. Though it rides on a chassis with the same mid-size 112.2-inch wheelbase, overall length is more than 2 inches longer. More notably, all body panels are unique, and Lincoln wears its own face with the best rework of their classic dual split-wing grille yet. And in an effort to further distinguish it from the Fusion, the MKZ offers a huge retractable glass roof not available at the Ford store. Like most brands that are out to reinvent themselves, Lincoln is attempting to attract younger buyers in this.
Now, right there, I want to say, let me go a little bit further.
Thoroughly modern.
That profile right there, I think that's really good looking. I think it's that character line through the door handles. I think that's a really good profile, and I like how the roof line swoops into the trunk. It just works for me. Now, I will not back off what I said. Everything looks too thick. Look at the treatment of this quarter window back here behind the rear door. It's like they just ran out of ideas. They just, boom, there's an angle. And you end up with this huge swath of metal between the top of the wheel arch and the bottom of the window. It's just thick. I appreciate that they put the effort into all new sheet metal for this thing to make it different than the Fusion. It's so close to being gorgeous to my eyes, and it just doesn't quite make it. We'll talk about the rear in a minute here.
Modern take should help. However, to us, the MKZ's smooth front doesn't seem to jive with the very angular rear, which still looks like old money.
Okay, so the rear end here is, I have very mixed feelings of it. First, of the bumper from the bottom of the trunk opening to, below the exhaust there. It's super thick. Everything on this car is just so thick, except for the tail lights. And it's like the stylist came back here and designed something and then went, oh, let's shrink it by 50%. I like what they're trying to do. I like the lights with the piece across the trunk. I really do. In fact, this is a very distinctive looking car from the rear. If you're behind one, you can tell what it is, but for some reason, to my eyes, they got to the rear here, they got to the tail lights, and they said, time to go dainty. Time to go dainty. And it just doesn't quite work. It's so close, but it just didn't work.
But all in all, it is the most original Lincoln since the Jaguar-based LS arrived in 1999. That impression is further reinforced inside. It's a very progressive design with features like push-button shift for the transmission and, of course, My Lincoln Touch. There's also decent materials, a much more flowing design with artistic use of wood tones, richer looking gauges, and front seats with a custom feel that are also more comfortable than Fusion. Overall, the environment is luxurious in a non-showy way.
All right, so let's talk about the interior here, and I've got two answers for you. The first is, I love it. I absolutely love it. As a little history, I have sat in multiple of these, and I've driven one, as I recall. And if I'm ever looking, daydreaming, as I do about cars, and I'm thinking like, I want something nicer than a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry, eventually I will come back to these cars because I think they're that good, but just not quite great. They fall into that, well, why would I buy this rather than a Acura TLX, something like that. I think the interior looks fantastic. Little too much black. I would like a lighter interior. As you know, I like my tan interiors, but the little bit of fake wood and the little bit of a brushed aluminum, little shapes, the gauges, the steering wheel, and I love the middle. They've got those big vents up top. The infotainment is built in, not perched on top like an afterthought, and it all slopes down. Now, I don't really like some of the haptic buttons here, but I love the interior in pictures, and that's super, super critical. I also really like that they do the transmission with push buttons. You don't need to have a rotary knob or a gear shifter or, piano buttons. You can just have a button. I absolutely love it. The problem is this. For the effort that Ford put in, they still could not go all in on luxury. They went in on style, and that continues in the newer cars. I think this is really, in a lot of ways, the start of Lincoln's renaissance. But the problem is the quality of the materials. I'm not saying that they're 1984 Toyota Corolla, but they're not special. It's Art Deco, it's modern, it's design, but it's not necessarily the highest quality. And when you sit in one of these, you're like, this looks great, but it's just not as nice as what you'd get in a BMW or an Acura or a Lexus. And that really let the entire interior down. It came across in person just a little cheap, just a little bit.
Except for one thing, the cheap-feeling steering wheel paddle shifters. We could live without them. The rear seat is roomy for 3, plus for up-level safety, it includes Ford's inflatable rear seat belts. The split seat backs fold for cargo flexibility. The trunk is also well appointed and holds an adequate 15.4 cubic feet of luggage.
So, I mean, right there, as a passenger vehicle, it had good space in the back, good leg room, split folding seats, which not everybody always invests in, inflatable belts I don't care about, 15.4 cubic feet in the trunk, low lift over. This is a good passenger vehicle. And it's, well, if you've ever seen my review of the Ford Fusion Hybrid, I think it's one of the best midsize sedans you can buy, with a few flaws. This is a really good vehicle.
Also, unlike the Fusion, a V6 is still available, a 300 horsepower 3.7 liter used in the MKX crossover. It's a good move that should attract luxury buyers. But the V6 is only one of 3 choices. Most MKZs will come powered by Ford's 2-liter EcoBoost i4 with 240 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. It's plenty powerful, but makes a bit too much noise for a luxury car. There's also an MKZ Hybrid, sharing the 2-liter i4 system from the Fusion Hybrid. Non-hybrids shift with a 6-speed automatic, and there's Lincoln Drive Control, which adjusts engine, transmission, and chassis settings with Sport, Normal, and Comfort modes. All-wheel drive is an option.
I have no problem with any of those engine options. I agree. The 4 is... let's talk about the 6, actually. The 6 is really good. I like the 6. I respect the 6. I don't have a problem with the 6. I'm sure if you're a viewer and you know there's something wrong with the 3.7 liter Ford engine, you will let me know in the comments below. But I actually respect it, and I think it's a really punchy performer, actually. The 4-cylinder, I don't have a problem with it. That's actually would be my choice because I want better efficiency. But it was coarse, and it's a perfect example of what was wrong with Lincoln. And what's been wrong with American manufacturers is they just take a technology from the lowest rung and pass it up, instead of designing for the best and passing it down for the cost savings. It was an okay engine. I mean, I don't have any problem with the power it produces and its drivability, but it wasn't special. The hybrid system, it's the same one in the Fusion. I like it. It's fine.
As for high-tech, keep up with the Joneses type of things, there's self-parking and a hidden rear dome light that senses when you want it to come on without actually touching it. Also, a whole suite of camera and radar-based safety aids are available, including lane keeping, collision warning, and blind spot monitoring. Monitoring our progress down the track, we observed a 0 to 60 time of 7.7 seconds with good initial power off the line. Transmission shifts are smooth and brisk, and in 15.9 seconds, we tripped the lights at the end of the quarter mile at 89 miles per hour. Our handling portion of track activities was equally inspiring with a surprisingly delightful touch of oversteer, and the brakes responded respectably as well, with stops averaging only 119 feet from 60.
That's fantastic. The 0 to 60 is good. The handling, delightful. And 119 for stopping? That's great. You know, again, if you watched any of my recent ones, I say 115 is the magic number, 119, nothing to sneeze at. Very, very good performance from this car.
Even with all-wheel drive, government fuel economy ratings are pretty good if you opt for the 2-liter EcoBoost, 22 city, 31 highway, and 25 combined.
No, and I'll disagree right there. That's one of the big flaws to me. Now, granted, there's something miraculous that happens. That you've got a standard, everyday, boring family hauler, like an Accord or a Camry, and it gets really good gas mileage. Again, my Accord, it's 8 years old now. I get about 29-ish in mixed driving. You make that into a sporty car, and all of a sudden, everybody's okay with the mileage dropping. And I don't get that. This is not great gas mileage. It's not terrible, but 22 city, 31 highway, I get nearly 40 on the highway with a 4-cylinder. So I'm not excited about this, and I can't pinpoint why on this car it gets worse gas mileage. Did they add a bunch of mass to it with sound deadening and things like that? I don't know. But I'm not excited about these numbers.
And we averaged a good 27.5 miles per gallon of regular and mixed driving. So the energy impact score is also decent, with annual oil consumption of 13.2 barrels of oil and CO2 emissions of 5.9 tons. Having a low base price might not give it status in the luxury community, but it does just fine for those looking for a bargain. And at $36,820, the Lincoln MKZ is just that. Clearly, the 2013 Lincoln MKZ is not the Lincoln we were expecting. It's much better and more in line with other premium brands from mass market automakers. It is a strong statement that Ford is committed to making Lincoln relevant again. Now we'll find out if luxury car buyers are still listening.
All right, so I didn't look up how this thing sold over its lifetime because I don't care. I have, again, I've looked at these before, and I've looked at them used, and I've watched, honestly, a lot of videos about this, of not Motorweek videos, but other videos where people have taken variations of this car out and done road tests on it. And it always comes back very, very positive. But if you've ever watched any of my videos where I road test a car, I ask myself two questions. Would I be proud to recommend it, and would I be proud to own one? And let's talk about the ownership portion of it. There's something about this car that keeps me from buying it. The first would be that it is more expensive and less efficient than just buying a Honda Accord. The second thing is that if I'm going to stretch and buy a premium or near luxury car, I want it to be premium or near luxury. And there's something about this car that just doesn't quite do it. I think the numbers back up that it's a good car. I think it's comfortable. It functions great as a car. It handles well. There's nothing blatantly wrong with the car, except it lacks that specialness that you get with some other brands. And so when I come back to would I be proud to own one, when I walk outside and I look at my car or my wife's car or my son's car, there's nothing really about it that distracts me. I like the look of my car. I like the interior. I like the dash. I like the way I like everything about it, basically, except for one thing. But this car, it's got a lot of tiny, tiny little things that by themselves aren't deal killers. But together, I get the feeling that I would have this car and just be distracted by those little things. Whether it was the grille, the fat rear end, the quality of the materials on the push-button transmission, little things like that. Those add up to an ownership experience. And I think that's ultimately what has kept me from one of these, because when I was looking for my Honda Accord, I was looking at one of these used. In fact, I was last year too. Anyway, the point is, I really like this car. I think it's a really good car. I think that people who were looking at Acuras should have looked at one of these too, and they may have been impressed with what they found. But ultimately, for my shopping list, as much as I like it and as much as I can justify the left brain, here's why it's good, I just don't see myself after 5 years of ownership looking at this being like, yeah, that's my car. I just think the little things would add up to me. I appreciate you being here, guys. Let me know your thoughts below. And if you ever owned one and you think I'm totally off base, let me know that as well, too. Thanks.